So today I wanted to talk about my top shrubs and perennials to use as cut flowers. I just finished a video that were my top 10 annual flowers I love to grow in my cut flower garden and cut and give away bouquets and all that stuff. And I thought it would be fun after I did the annual one that I would do perennials and shrubs. Now, I live in Zone 3, Northern Minnesota. These are all shrubs and perennials that work in my area. I'm sure if you live in a warmer zone, there's a ton of other perennials and shrubs and stuff that would work great for cut flowers. I just can't grow them here. So definitely do your research, talk to other people in the area, what they like to use that are local to you, and that will give you a great idea as well. Now, I kind of tried to clump these together as like filler things, filler foliage. And then I have the thriller or the main focal flower. And then I have just little, I like to call them little sparkles that I added, that they're not the main focal flower, but they add so much to a bouquet. So I thought when I make my arrangements, I always start with structural things. So I thought I would start with the structure and what I use for that. So number one on my list is 9 bark. I love using 9 bark as like my frame. So I use the branches as the frame. I'll make the structure and then I fill it in with all my fillers and thrillers and spillers and all that stuff. So what I love about 9 bark is they create these beautiful little twinkly flowers, like groups of flowers in the springtime. And then when those flowers fade, they form the most beautiful, beautiful seed pods. I love them. Now keep in mind, they do bloom on old wood. So if you do like a major prune back in the spring, you're not going to get any of the flowers or the seed pods that same year. And I also noticed as well is that it was just getting too big for the area that we put it in. So we whacked it back and it sprung forth with this beautiful new growth. But the new growth was so soft and flimsy. When I cut that, it instantly wilted in the vase. So you need it to get kind of that woody stem before you cut it and put it in the vase. Otherwise, it wilts. But if you wait for that woody stem to harden, then it holds its shape in the vase. So there are tons of different 9 barks out there. The ones that I have an Amber Jubilee, which is this beautiful, it creates like this ambery orange new growth. And then as it ages during the year, it turns this deep kind of burgundy green color. I have another 9 bark that has deep burgundy foliage with this bright, almost kind of like light pinkish white flower. I'm not sure that variety, but that one's really gorgeous too. The next one I love to use are smoke bush, specifically the purple smoke bush. I think there is like a green smoke bush that's this bright chartreuse color, but I have a purple smoke bush in my garden. They get big, 8 to 10 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide, but they get these massive purple leaves that just blow and glisten in the wind, and they add so much movement to flower arrangements. Same thing as the 9 bark. I notice if you prune it back, because I did one year, and all that fresh new growth, once I cut it and put it in the vase, it wilted. But if I waited and let the stems get woody and more hard, then it wouldn't wilt and it held its shape much better. And smoke bush does bloom on old wood. It gets those smoky plumes that are really pretty to add into bouquets and arrangements and just add like this whimsical effect. And my last kind of structural piece is a false cypress. I have the lemon thread false cypress, and it adds this kind of very unique textural element that you normally don't see into arrangements. And this one is a bright yellow chartreuse green, and I just love that pop of color, especially paired with the deep purple smoke bush. Okay, so that is my filler foliage structure. Next, moving on to the main focal flowers, roses. Need I say more? Like roses, like rose shrubs, rose bushes, beautiful focal flowers. absolutely gorgeous, and they're coming out with new varieties. Proven Winners has some of the Oh So Easy roses that just bloom all season long. You don't have to deadhead, and I've used those in quite a few arrangements as well. And then of course David Austin. They're dreamy, so dreamy. I just planted 5 David Austin roses last year. I got a few blooms on every single shrub. I couldn't bring myself to cut them off and bring them out of the landscape. So I'm super excited for this season. Hopefully they'll produce more blooms that I can use and enjoy both in the garden and in arrangements. The next one of my favorite flowers that I feel like could be used for both a focal and like a filler flower are lilies, specifically Asiatic lilies. I love lilies in the garden. They bloom for close to 3, sometimes 4 weeks long. So once it starts blooming, you have lots of flowers to cut from. They naturalize, so you throw a bulb in the ground and pretty soon over the years that bulb has multiplied. And I love them in vases because normally each stem has multiple flower heads on it. And as one lily head is starting to fade, I just pluck it off and the next one is starting to bloom. So it gives a super long vase life as well with all the multiple heads. Next one, same with the lily. I've used these as focal flowers, but I've also used these as like filler flowers. Is that the term? I am not a florist, you guys. I am not, I do not know the correct lingual, so excuse me. But echinacea or coneflowers. I love echinacea. They come in pretty much every single color imaginable. I think the only color I haven't seen is blue. They last a super long time in the vase life and the garden. They're the type in the garden that once they start blooming, they bloom the rest of the season. And then after the blooms are spent, I still cut them and use them in arrangements because they leave behind this perfect little cone ball that adds just the perfect amount of interest and structure and texture into arrangements. Next, one of my favorite large focal point flowers as far as shrubs form are hydrangeas. They literally last forever in the vase because once you cut them, if you wait for the trick about hydrangeas is you need to wait until the whole head has open fully. You know, a hydrangea is made up of tons of little tiny blooms. They need to wait for every single one of those blooms to open. If there's still some on top that are closed tight in those little ball buds, the flower will wilt more quickly versus if you wait for all of the flowers to open on the hydrangea head, they will literally just dry in the vase. And then once all the other flowers are gone, you can just pluck out the dried hydrangea blooms, put them in another vase, and you have a dried arrangement. So the hydrangeas that I personally love that I have at my house are the Limelight hydrangeas. I have Limelight hydrangea standards, which is a tree form. I have the Quick Fire, which is a lace top, so it looks like beautiful little lace details tucked throughout the arrangement. I normally use the lace top hydrangeas as more of an accent flower, not the direct focal flower, but I absolutely love them. I have the Vanilla Strawberry, which is more of a bigger bloom, but adds beautiful color. And then the Bobo hydrangea as well. So I use all of those in arrangements, but really I feel like any hydrangea would work beautifully. All right, those are my main focal flowers. Now moving on to would it just be fillers? I like to call them sparkles in the arrangement. They're not like the super kapow flower, but they add interest and little sparkles throughout the arrangement. So my number one, top one, is actually Spirea. And I love Spirea blooms in my arrangements. They're just this beautiful little delicate flowers. They normally come in colors white or pink, depending on the variety of Spirea that you have. They last incredibly long in the vase and I think just add a beautiful element. Next are upright sedums. I just love the texture of sedums. Specifically, I mean, there's two types of sedums generally. There's like the ground cover sedum that kind of creeps and crawls and stuff. That would be more difficult to work into a vase, but the tall upright sedums, they add that beautiful color and that different texture that you normally don't see in arrangements. I love it. Just like the echinacea, once they start blooming, they will bloom the whole entire season. And they are a really easy one to handle or grow in your garden because they're drought tolerant. They like crummy soil. They don't need anything special. So very easy to grow. And then I also love yarrow. Now, typically when people think of the wild yarrow, it's not that appealing, like the small white blooms, kind of straggly foliage. And that's actually the only kind of yarrow I have. And I love to use that kind in arrangements. One, it adds this very unique, incredible scent. It's kind of like that herby scent. I love the smell of yarrow. And then once you just strip off the kind of dry, dead leaves that all the wild yarrow has, you're left with this lacy white flower. Now there are so many different types of improved versions, and I actually have some seed that I'll be starting this year to help hopefully bulk up my yarrow supply. And then I did just plant some Proven Winners yarrow. I can't remember the variety. It's this bright yellow color. So I'll be using that this year in flower arrangements as well, and it just adds that lacy texture. Next I have Veronica, which is like a tall spike flower. I really like that. It adds upward movement, kind of some drama, some height to arrangements. And they're so easy to tuck in the little spikes. They come in multiple colors. Most common that I've seen is white, blue, the dark blue, light blue, pinks, purples. Last a long time in the garden. Pollinators love them, so they're great for arrangements and for the garden landscape as well. I used quite a few of these in arrangements last year, and I just love them. And I'm really excited to use them again this year. I love to use heuchera blooms in arrangements. They add this perfect little sparkle. It doesn't add a whole lot to arrangements, but it adds just enough interest. And every time I include it in arrangements, people always ask what it is. Absolutely love it. That is it on my list. I actually really struggled narrowing it down this much. There's so many more delphiniums, lupins, so many more perennials and shrubs that work amazing. But I find that these are the top ones that I always gravitate towards. So I hope this helps if you were wanting to move more into perennials and shrubs for cut flowers. I love it. Check out my annuals that you can start from seed that are great for cut flowers. I'll leave that video linked down in the description box below. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.